Council and conduct all activities for overall improvement of students for imbibing the culture of innovation amongst them. I would like to welcome our resource person, Mr. Kshitij Anand sir, for gracing the occasion. I would like to welcome President of IIC, Dr. S. M. Mahajan sir, for joining the meeting. I would like to welcome our Vice President and Innovation Activity Coordinator, Dr. Jayesh Luikar sir, and all other office bearers of EIT IIC and students coordinators and all my dear participants. Today, we all have a great honor to have with us a person who has practically changed the way of making online transactions. I hope most of us use Paytm for making online transactions. So all of you know that the Paytm is an Indian e-commerce payment system and a financial technology company which is based in Noida, and practically it does not require any further introductions. Today we have with us a person who is instrumental in designing Paytm for us. Let me have a privilege to welcome Mr. Kshitij Anand sir, who is Associate Vice President, Designs at Paytm. In today's session, Mr. Anand will be sharing his expertise on how to build an innovation or a product fit for market. We are grateful for Mr. Kshitij Anand for accepting our invitation and conducting a session. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to request Dr. S. M. Mahajan sir to give introductory remarks. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon to one and all. Product market fit is a common concept in the startup world. Mr. Alex Schultz has said, he's one of the eminent market analysts, and I quote that the number one problem I have seen for startups is they don't have product market fit when they think they do. Learning about product market fit is essential because until that point, you don't have whether or not what you are building solves a real problem with a large enough market. Without clarity on this, you would continue investing in creating something that is not commercially viable. Startups need to validate the assumptions that need to learn whether or not there is a demand for their product in the initial stage of product development. Startups need to validate the assumption that is, you know already, you need to learn whether it's a demand in the market or not. Hence, every aspiring entrepreneur needs to understand the process of creating product fit for the market because it is useful for understanding the relationship between a business, its product, and its customers. Learning product market fit will help you to see the world differently and inspire new ways to create value for your customer and growth for your business. Understand this, we have organized today's session on building an innovation fit for the market. I thank Mr. Kshitij Anand for accepting our invitation and joining us for today's session. I also urge the young participant to understand what exactly does product market fit means, why it is so important, and how you can find one. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak in front of you. I welcome again Mr. Kshitij Anand for today's session. Thank you. Over to Kinikar sir.
Thank you, sir. I really have a Herculean task right now. I need to introduce Mr. Anand. He has a very good profile, and I apologize to him in advance, sir. If I miss something, I will say sorry in advance. I would like to introduce him to you all on very prominent highlights. He is a very passionate designer, a design leader, educator, and an investor. He loves to build products and systems, setups across functional teams and initiatives. He topped his undergraduate degree at Design and Communications Design from IIT Guwahati with a GPA of 8.65 out of 10. He completed his post-graduation at Masters of Science in Human-Computer Interaction Design from Indiana University, Bloomington, USA, with a GPA of 3.93 over 4. in May 2009. His skill set includes operation management, design research framework, UX design management in agile setup, and the list goes on. His research areas include business innovation, strategic design thinking, product design, sustainable development goals, design for NBU, that is next billion users. As an academician, he has worked as an associate instructor, project manager, design mentor in Indiana University, Bloomington, USA, and he was visiting faculty in Institute of Product Leadership. Currently, he is a director at Design Village, Noida, where he is involved in setting up and managing the Design Village. That is an interdisciplinary, industry-centric institute which offers an undergraduate and postgraduate courses in design. He is a visiting faculty to numerous design colleges and tech universities on design theory and methods, user experience design, design for social impact. He is a guest faculty at IIT Delhi and Shivnadar University in Greater Noida. As well as he is a visiting faculty in D.Y. Patel International University, Pune, and J.K. Lakshmipat University at Jaipur. In his past, he has mentored over 50 students in their projects, and some of which have gone on to win awards too. He is currently working at Paytm as Associate Vice President Design, where he heads the design operations. He is an investor and a founder of Suchak and Packet Startup, working towards the whole school transformation by providing inductive learning among the students and empowerment of teachers. He co-founded Karakeba Ventures along with a few other people to invest in a startup ecosystem in Bihar. Prior to this, he headed UX team at 1mg.com. Earlier, he founded Fontscene, a research product design counseling agency with which organizations and individuals can create impactful solutions. Through that, he facilitates workshops on design thinking, innovation, leadership, user experience design, entrepreneurship, project management, and so on. He conducted over 30 workshops at companies across different domains. He is a chairman of board at Happy Horizons Trust that uses the power of design thinking, participatory learning, community-based learning, and alternative education interventions. That is storytelling, activity-based learning, learning through films and videos, simply because to improve the quality of school education in India. Currently, the 40 people organization works with 75 schools in rural Bihar, outreaching to approximately 35,000 students. Great job, sir. Through the READY, that is Rethinking Education and Development and Youth Program, they empower girls in rural Bihar. 35 girls have benefited from this program. Apart from all these, he has delivered various expert lectures, conducted several workshops, has many publications, and lastly has bagged many prestigious awards. It's really a moment of pride for all of us to have such an eminent personality as a part of BIT. Without further ado, I hand over the session to you, sir. Sir, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Abhishek sir. Thank you, Sanjay sir. Thank you, Sandesh sir.
Yes, sir.
You didn't have to speak like the whole long thing. I think students these days are very smart to just, read up information on the internet, right? Everything is on the internet. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Whenever I get an opportunity to address students, I just, immediately say yes to it, right? I just feel that, one of the basic responsibilities that we as professionals in the industry have is to continuously give back to students by, engaging with them, kind of probing them, triggering the thought process. So when Sandesh reached out to me, and I think people from the IISc reached out to me, I was more than happy. In fact, we had to reschedule it because of exams and stuff and COVID situations. But I still said, once I've committed, I'm definitely going to do it because I thoroughly enjoy interacting with students, right? And I think, so thank you so much once again, everybody involved. Thank you, Sanjay sir. Thank you, Sandeshji. Thank you, Abhishek sir, for the warm intro as well. So what I'll do is we've got like 45 minutes, a time that we have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through some slides. And I also want, I know we have like 100 people odd audience, but maybe, some slides are like kind of purposefully left as open slides, right? Because I want you to also, given your inputs as to what is your understanding of it, right? So whenever the open slides come in, I would want you to really, spend some time in thinking what it is. There is no right or wrong answer, okay? To anything that I ask, there is no right or wrong answer. It's just a way for me to address that you should at least start thinking on those lines, right? I'll share this presentation also with Sandesh and with Abhishek sir later on as well, so that you can just share it with people whoever feels it is essential and helpful. All right, so I won't go through the introduction again, but just quickly, my contact details are pretty much available. I'm pretty active on Twitter and LinkedIn, so if you want to follow me, just get in touch with me. In fact, please feel free to do that, and I do that fairly often. I kind of tweet a lot because I do feel that sharing the knowledge is also one very interesting part of learning, right? So I use this opportunity to learn of something and then share it with people. I treat over my own learning and then eventually bring back to my own development, right? So I do feel that it's a continuous process. I've been doing this for the past 10 years, and I feel that every time I find this fascination for a new thing, I continuously try to explore that. So currently, my current fascination is actually investments and trying to see how do you invest in startups and how do you really identify whether a startup has potential to make it big. And that is where I think one of the important things that we often check is the product market fit, right? And that's where I am very passionate about product market fit, because I do feel that it is an essential part of any startup, right? It's a very integral part of it, right? So I'm assuming, right? I'm assuming that since many of you who are in the audience today, either you want to start up or have already started up in some form. If you have not started up, you're already losing out on so many things, because today there has never been a better time to start up something on your own, with the amount of free tools available, with the amount of free advice available, with the amount of resources available. So if you have any idea in mind, you should definitely think about how do you want to start it up and how do you want to make sure you kind of start something about it, right? I personally have been in the past 10 years of my career. I've been in the industry for almost 16 years now. I've always strived to, if you have an idea, try to put it to some shape and then launch it in the market, right? Because I do feel that the only when you actually end up launching it in the market, you really are able to, understand the importance of your idea and whether it's going to succeed or fail. If your idea remains in your head, then it's doing no good, neither to you, not to your friends, not to your family, not to the society, not to humanity. So if you really feel that you want to start up on an idea, you should really go ahead and start it up. Right from YouTube, right from all the online courses available, right from the online webinars like these that are available these days more freely, more readily. There's no reason why you should not start up, right? And trust me when I say this, that the college is actually the best time to start up, right? A lot of people, in fact, including me, I had this notion that, you know what, maybe first I'll work for a few years, then I'll save up some money, then I'll probably start up something. Trust me, that is a wrong way of approaching things. Your best bet at starting up, if you're really interested in building something, is to start up in your college. Having said that, of course, a lot of people want to do work and gain experiences, which is also perfectly fine, right? So there's no right or wrong to it. I'm just saying that if you have a little bit of an idea that you want to take it to market, I would always advise to use the college to your, to make that your market and to kind of start something out there, right? I also feel that because in the college, it's easy to get your users, it's easy to get your peers, it's easy to get feedback, right? So you should leverage that environment. And I think, the Institution Innovation Council can actually anchor a lot of those discussions as well. So Sandesh, Mahajan sir also mentioned that, there's this very interesting research that was conducted where they said that, probably about 40%, in fact, more than 40% of the startups which actually fail, right, fail due to the reason of no market need, right? And it's kind of startling because here I'm telling you that, you should, if you have an idea, just go ahead and build it. And on the other end, we also are telling that, there's a market, and with the market, if you have not identified the need, or if you have seen that you've just launched a product without any market need, the product is going to fail, right? And we'll go a little bit deeper into these concepts in a while. But just imagine, right? Running out of cash is just about 30%, right? Then not the right team. You can actually change your team. You can change your, you can get more cash if you run out of cash. You can get more funding for your products, for your startup. But if you don't have the right market fit, right? If there is no market need for a product, which means that it is bound to fail, because it's very difficult to change an entire community. It's very difficult to change an entire society. It's difficult to change an entire market out there, right? So there are multiple reasons. The most important reason why, in fact, many startups fail is because of the reason that there is no market need, right? And when you think about this whole notion, right, that there is product, there is market, and there is fit, right? So there are three things which we are going to explore a little bit in detail. What is our understanding of a product? I remember that when we are in colleges, many people don't understand what it is a product, right? What does the product really mean? When I was in college back in my undergrad, of course, product meant something which is a physical product, right? So like a refrigerator or a washing machine or a car, for example, right? And then there is a market, right, which basically serves a certain population. And then there is a fitment of that product inside that market, right? There are many products which we find which are actually out of the market, which don't have a fitment in the market. There are many times when the market actually needs product, but the product itself are not available also, right? So in this next half an hour or so, we will go a little bit deeper into trying to understand what product market fits are and what are some pitfalls for it. And I'm not able to see the Google, chat window. Okay, actually I can see now. So if there are any questions that you have, just feel free to, just put it out in the chat window. I have my chat window also open on the side. So that way, in case there are some questions, we won't take the questions immediately. We'll take the questions towards the end, right? So that I want to kind of make one flow of the presentation, and then eventually we'll take the questions towards the end, right? But if you have a question, please feel free to, type it in the chat window. I can extend by another 10 to 15 minutes. That should not be a problem, right? So don't worry about that. All right, so let me start with a very quick open-ended question, right? Like, what, in your opinion, is a product, right? If I were to ask this open-ended question, right? So anybody can answer, right? There's no right or wrong answer, as I said. In your understanding, in your present understanding, what comes to your mind the moment I say the word, what is a product? Anybody? And I'm going to start. I also just type out a few of those things, comments, right? Whatever you say. Yeah, tell me, go ahead.
Anything which can sell is product.
Anything which can sell. Very good. Very interesting.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thanks, Karthik. What else? Anybody else? Come on, we're going to make this a little bit interactive as well, right? If I'm going to do only talking all the while, it's going to be very boring and monotonous and one-way communication, right? That's the worst thing you want in a lecture with me, because I particularly force people to speak up. Yes.
Anything which reduces human effort.
Vishwajit says anything which reduces human effort. And Kunal, you were saying something.
Anything which can change customers means life, means impact their life and make that easy way.
That impacts customers' lives in easy way. What was the other one you said, Vishwajit?
Anything which reduces human efforts and save time.
Anything which reduces human effort and saves time. Interesting. What else? What else comes to your mind?
It is an item offered for a sale.
It is an item offered for a sell. Anything which can sell. Anything, when I say anything, it can mean an item for a sell. Okay. What else?
Problem to a solution.
Pardon?
Solution to a problem. Solution to a problem.
It's a solution to a problem. So the product is a solution to a problem. Okay. So can a building be a solution to a problem? Can a building be a product then? The building in which you're sitting right now, can that be a product?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes. Sir.
Why is that?
Sir, we need shelter to live. So this is a problem. The problem is there that we need a shelter. Solution is the building.
So need of shelter is the problem and the solution is the building. That's what we are saying, right? So the building then becomes a product, right? Do you all agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So building is a product. A building is a product which is designed by an architect and then probably, built by the engineers and the masons who build it. And at the end of the day, what comes out is a product. So one of the examples I actually give about building a product is actually I'm building a small hospital in rural Bihar. And for me, I'm applying all my understanding of product management into that, into building a hospital. So for me, the end product out there is the hospital, which is going to be run by doctors and professionals and everybody else. But the end product is the hospital itself, right? It is going to impact customers' life in an easy way. It is going to reduce human effort and save time for people because they're going to get facilities together. It is a solution to a problem, and it is a bundle of satisfaction that the customer buys, right? Because once the customer comes to that place, they expect that they would be, getting certain services out there. Okay, great. What else? What else comes to mind? Come on. I'm going to start calling out names otherwise.
Sir, we may also frame it as a substance which fulfills someone's need.
Fulfill someone's need. Okay, substance that fulfills someone's needs. Okay, great. What else? Piyush, I'm going to start calling out names.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Piyush, go ahead.
Sir, I told the solution to a problem.
You told me. Okay, great. Mridula. Mridula, are you there? All right, Pranay.
Service.
It is a service.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can a service be a product?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Explain how.
So we can take examples of Flipkart and Amazon e-commerce
Also,
services.
we can take the example of Airtel or any network services that is that is their product, and we choose a service.
Okay. So a product will also be a service, wherein we say with service, where we say there's a lot of people involved, there are a lot of the processes involved, and during the course of the service, the end consumer may be using a couple of products, right? One or many of the products that is to offer, which combines together to make the service, right? So as the solution, if we look at purely from the solution to a problem, a service could be a solution to a problem, right? Okay, great. So moving on, right? So again, as a lot of you just mentioned, and I think you see a lot of synergies with what other people also have said and what I've also wanted to say, right? So it's either a service or a thing that people will pay for it, right? It's very important to remember this word "pay for it." I know there are a lot of free products out there, and we all aspire for, as students and specifically as Indians, we all love free products, right? So we all want to get free products, but then the best is if you can offer service or a thing which people can pay for it. That is something which signifies a good product. Something that solves a problem, which a lot of you mentioned. Something that fulfills the needs of customer. Again, some of you mentioned. Something that makes the lives easier than the past. Again, someone mentioned. Something is affordable to a specific socioeconomic category of people, right? So something which you can buy, right, or something that you can pay for and get the money for it. Something which is profitable for the market manufacturer in the long run, and the fact that a product has to have a market for it, and the fact that the product should be sustainable as well as eco-friendly, right? So there are different aspects of a product. It's important for us to understand that when I started my career in 2005, people never talked about product design, right? People never talked about product aspect of things. They always talked about a project or a service that was being offered. Probably around 2010, 2011 or 2012 onwards is when people started to talk a lot about product companies, things like Google, Facebook, Microsoft becoming very powerful technology-driven product companies. And today, if you look at the Indian startup ecosystem, is very well driven by a lot of amazing product companies, right? Like you mentioned Flipkart, there's Amazon, there's Paytm, there is Redbus, there is Zerodha. There's so many companies which are out there, which are actually product companies, and they have actually fulfilled all of these criteria. Some of these criteria, in fact, majority of these criteria, right? And it's important for us to always keep in mind that when we design a product, for us, it's important to make sure that customers will always have a need for the product. The day the customer stops needing your product, that is the day when you go out of business, right? So constantly, research teams within organizations, innovation teams within organizations, they have to continuously keep finding themselves this notion that what is it that will keep us relevant in the customer's mindset, in the customer's life, so that our product can keep evolving. A classic example if you remember, I don't know since when you're using Paytm. I've been using Paytm from probably the early days of, just simple, where there was just only phone recharge, right? Today, if you look at the Paytm ecosystem, you could do like 100 different things. You could do stock trading, you could do ticket booking, you could do recharges, you could do insurance premium payment, you could do, getting a loan, you could get apply for a credit card. There are so many things that you can do. So the product has also evolved from a period of time, right? What starts off as a small product, which we say as a minimum viable product, the MVP, eventually over a period of time grows into a larger product, right? And there could be multiple components inside that larger product. So when you're starting out, the product is a simple idea. But when you are of a company like Paytm, which is about 20 years old, the product has evolved into this microcosm of a lot of different products that fit together under that Paytm umbrella, right? So that's the reason why you can see probably on Paytm, I can do travel booking, I can do flight booking, ticket, train booking, I can do hotels, I can do get a loan, I can do so many, I can do e-commerce, etc., right? So that's one interesting thing that you should always remember. The product starts with an idea. Many times you will evolve with the idea. You should also remember that not often, in fact, 95% of the time, the idea with which you started will evolve in the next couple of years. And once you reflect back, you will see that the idea is actually completely very different than what I initially started with. And that is also perfectly fine to have. All right, so moving forward from product, right? So it's basically, as I said, as long as there are enough users and there are users who can pay for it, who can use it for a long period of time, right? There has to be a usage of it for a long usage of time. Then it is justified that we can create the product. So tomorrow, let's say if you stop using Paytm altogether, and the fact that you don't do anything with Paytm, that's the day when you will feel that, oh, this product is no longer in my life, right? I mean, many of our users start behaving similarly. Then we know that we have to either evolve the product or we have to just shut it down, right? Many times startups shut down because of that very reason, because they are not able to actually, evolve themselves. They're not able to reinvent themselves to basically, reinvent themselves to, one second, hold on. Some background noise. All right. So now, once we look at product, right? So what's a market, in my opinion? What is a market? What is people's opinions about a market? And we'll take a couple of, pointers from people. What do you think? What is a market?
Platform to sell.
It's a what? Platform to sell. Okay, great. What else? Market is a platform to sell. So, for example, if you look at historical times, right? In prehistoric times, like Roman civilization, Indus Valley civilizations, we all had the concept of a market, right? So what was the concept of a market then? And can you see parallels between then and today when we say what's a market? So in the prehistoric times or ancient civilizations, there used to be what? Markets were basically a place where people came and there was always a buyer and a seller, right? So there were people who would sell and there were people who would buy, right? So in order for an entity to be called a market, this two-way communication, two-way interaction has to happen. There has to be a product in the middle, but then there has to be someone who is selling the product and there has to be someone who is buying the product, right? So basically a marketplace where there is buyer and a seller involved, okay? What else? What else comes to your mind? Anybody else?
A gathering of products.
A gathering of products, okay? Okay. Right, and this is like for a purpose of selling, right? Let's just make it a little bit, all right? What else? Anybody else? Closing comments? Anybody else on what's a market? What is in your understanding of market? Okay, let me see. Let me call out names.
A place where everyone find their need.
Place where everyone finds their
A place where everyone find what they need.
find what they
And
need. A place to find what one needs. Okay, Antriksh, what do you think? What's the market? Any way you can explain that? Anurag? I'm just going to call out names. Pallavi? Okay. So,
Exchange of goods.
exchange of goods. Okay. Yeah. So exchange of goods between two parties, right? So market basically is an exchange of goods between two parties. It could be a physical outlet or it could be a virtual outlet, right? So when you look at a physical market space, it's your market, the bazaars that we go to, right? Like we go to a fish market, we go to a vegetable market, we go to a automobile market, we go to a spare parts market, we go to the furniture market. So there are places where certain kind of goods and services are offered. That's a physical entity. Today, of course, when we're looking at the technology world, it is a lot about the virtual market, right? So for example, Amazon is a marketplace, right? Flipkart is a marketplace, Paytm is a marketplace. It's a virtual where a lot of the e-commerce things happens, right? If one party is you, which is the product creator, right? The other party is the people, right? So the market is basically the people, the buyer of your product. So it's important for us to always remember that a product cannot exist if there is no people, if there is no market which is there to absorb that product. It's a very simple way of understanding. If you have a product and you have not thought about the market, you are guaranteed to fail. If you have spent time in the market and you have understood what the customer's needs are and what people need, and then you have tried to build a product, of course, the chances of success are higher. Of course, there's no guarantee 100% chance of success because there are a lot of other factors also that come into that picture as well. All right. So remember this thing, right? So we'll come back to this word people and humans and users quite often. So one of the things which I have often felt is that once we have identified people, right? Once we know that yes, we have a product idea in mind and we have to kind of do it for a certain amount of people, right? It's important for us to do some amount of user research in order to get to good product market fits, right? What good user research does is it helps you to understand the needs of the customers, right? So basically, and sometimes want. So for example, if you tell somebody that, hey, I'm going to create this new product which is going to do, X, Y, Z, right? Or which is going to, let's say, teleport you to another time zone, right? And you go and you start building it without even asking that whether people would want it or not, right? Chances are that, when you build it, it may not succeed. But if you spend some time in actually asking to people, okay, I'm trying to build this, I have this idea in mind. What do you think could be the certain features in it, right? What are some things that you might need? What are some things that you might want? Now, one of the ways when I try to address specifically when you're building products is to make sure that you understand customers' needs and wants clearly, right? Can you explain the difference between needs and wants? What is needs? What is wants? And this is a very one of the most simple and one of the most interesting framework that you should be ready to use straight away just to understand. And I use it like in everything. I use it in managing my team. I use it in starting a new idea. I use it in evaluating a startup. I use it in multiple other things as well, including to I have 2 daughters, so including to upbring those daughters as well. I try to use this framework as well, right? What do you think? What is the difference between needs and wants?
Something that is necessary for our life.
Which is what? Is that want or a need?
Need.
So so you're saying needs are necessity. Okay. If needs are necessity, then what are wants? What could be the other spectrum of thing?
Desire of an individual.
Desire. Okay. So one side is necessity and the other side is desire, right? When you do user research, classic problem that comes about when we do user research is that a lot of times people, they actually express their desires in the disguise of a need. They express their wants in the desire of a need. So for example, right? You wanting an iPhone really badly is a want. You wanting an iPhone to, let's say, talk to your parents is a want, because probably you have a desire for owning an iPhone. But then the need of actually making a phone call, which is the necessity, can actually be fulfilled even by your simple Android phones, right? So this whole notion of needs and wants plays out very beautifully in life as well. Another examples, anything else that you can think of? What are needs and wants?
A need is that make a customer life simple.
Okay. Okay. What else? And the wants are not like that. Can wants also make people's life simple? Or does it complicate? So if someone, let's say, goes and buys you that iPhone, which is really costly iPhone, will it make your life more simple, even if you didn't need it?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. It might actually end up with a lot of tension also, right? What if this gets stolen? What if this falls? It's a अच्छा है कि इसको मैं रख के रख देता हूँ कहीं पे. Let me not use it. Okay, great. So this is one framework which I often use, needs versus want. I often say that we should always keep this in mind, right? So I'll just highlight a couple of things. Needs are more necessity driven, wants are desire driven. Needs focuses on people, right? The wants focuses on business, right? So sometimes, let's say, whenever there's businesses which is out there, needs focuses on problem solving products. Wants often focuses on comfort providing products, right? Needs is finite in nature because there's a necessity, there's a need, that need is fulfilled. Wants is infinite, right? You can actually go ahead and want so many things. Here is an interesting corollary to this, right? Often a want can become a need, right? So for example, if I am in a class where 20 people have iPhones and the professor has made it mandatory, right? That you should have, or not made it mandatory, but just by peer pressure, you feel that you actually have to have a good phone. Then probably, that initially what was a want to have a good phone, then become necessity where you actually have to, own that new product, right? A need is a pre-requirement of an innovation. We should always try to innovate where we feel that there are good needs that we can identify from people. All right. Now the thing is, when we in teams, when we work, right? When we work, we often have this desire that we want this, we want that, and then the teams will actually sit and say, okay, let's go ahead and build these things, because either we can say that the users want this thing, or we have spent some time as research in trying to identify that people actually need that particular thing, right? Whenever you are addressing a person's needs, the chances of your product success is very high, because people cannot live without it, right? It's a necessity. So today, for example, someone might say, I'm not saying it started off that way, but someone might say that being on Facebook or being on Instagram is my social need. But I'm sure Instagram did not start like that. Over a period of time, it has evolved to that stage where now it has become your need. So initially, it was probably, oh, I don't want to be on Facebook, or maybe, I don't need to be on Facebook. It is probably just a want. But today, if all my friends are on Facebook, and this is the only way in which I can actually communicate with my friends is via Facebook, then that becomes a need for me, right? And that is when the team knows that what we are going to build and what we are going to ship out. All right. This is very interesting five-phased diagram about understanding the customer, understanding the needs, and then if you're the products. If you look at the top part of this diagram here, right? The top part basically talks about everything that are deeper understanding of your market, right? So here's very interesting. If you do not do the market study or the market understanding or the market research to understand what people's needs are, the chances that the product does not have a solid foundation, right? It basically is on loose grounds. If you have done this, in terms of identifying what people's needs are, identifying who your target customers are going to be, you can be guaranteed that the product that you build on top of that is going to have very solid foundations, right? And that is what we all aspire for, right? That is what we all aspire for. And if you look at this, right? So product market fit is bridging this gap between the product and the market. And trust me when I say this, and I'm sure you remember the first slide that we talked about, where 40%, 42% of startups actually failed because they're not able to bridge this gap. Many people probably, in fact, if I ask this room today, there are about 75 people right now. If I ask, tell me an idea that you want to build, I'm pretty sure everybody will tell me that at least they have 5 ideas which they want to build. But if I ask how many people actually have done some basic understanding of the market, probably only 20% of that people will actually say that, yes, we understand because we have spoken to people. We actually try to understand who our target customers will be, right? And out of those 20% who do that, will actually make the effort to go and build that. 80% will not even do that, right? So this is very important for us, right? That we have a product idea in mind and we have a market which is out there, right? Now, in management, there is this philosophy called the blue ocean strategy, right? Where basically you're saying that you want to enter a market where there no competition exists. And the other extreme is like a red ocean strategy, which is basically entering a market where a lot of product exists. So Paytm, when it started off, probably it was a blue ocean strategy where there was no people who were doing fintech and financial payments via mobile. But today, if you look at it, there are so many people using it, right? You have Google Pay, you have Phone Pay, you have Amazon Pay, you have WhatsApp Pay, and so many things. So today it's a red ocean. There is so many other players out there, right? Maruti, when it started with cars in India, Maruti and Suzuki was a blue ocean because there was, of course, not many competitors out there. Hindustan was there, Ambassador Cars, then there was Maruti. And then, of course, our economy opened up. And then after the 90s, we had like just way many cars and brands that came. So the market became flooded. Thankfully, these days, it is easy to do a market understanding by actually speaking to customers, by actually going and doing some amount of user research, by going and talking to people, by understanding what competition is doing, by understanding what people have tried out and failed and succeeded or not, and accordingly make our own judgment on what our features in a product is going to be like, what our value proposition is going to be like, what our UX thing is going to be like, right? And I think like we can do another separate workshop sometime later where we do a deep dive using the business model canvas or trying to do a startup idea and how to validate ideas and how to design features and all. But that's like a longer 3 to 4 hour workshop. Hopefully we can coordinate that sometime. But just to understand that even within products, you may have a very good value proposition. For example, the value proposition that yes, I can pay through mobile. I'm going to have some very good feature sets, right? Which is, okay, I'm going to do this, and you should be able to do it. But if I don't have good user experience, it is going to fail again, right? Because users might say, wow, this is very nice. This product is really amazing. This I can do so many, there's a lot of cashbacks. Cashback was a feature, right? So there's a lot of cashback, but the UX is really poor and the product is going to fail, right? So always remember, from a product market, the product market fit bridge is precisely looking at the product and trying to make sure that it fits within my, the scheme of things for my market as well. So Mark Andreessen, one of the leading venture capitalists in the world, he says that product market fit means being in a good market with a product that can satisfy that market. I want to really emphasize on this word satisfy. The reason being that, there could be so many products out there, but customers will be satisfied with only a certain couple of products out there, right? Not every product will satisfy the customer. So today, for example, if you go and try to buy air conditioners, right, there are so many options available out there. If you go to buy bikes, or if you go to buy, let's say, cars, and try to buy air, there are so many options out there, right? For that customer, only a certain thing will be able to satisfy your requirement, right? So PMF, right, or the product market fit is a very important thing, which I think all startups should keep in mind from the very beginning. Gone are the days, like early in the days of startup ecosystem in India, people could start a startup and they would get some funding, and people would be willing to bet on that idea, on that person. Today, a lot of startup companies actually, a lot of investors actually try to look for companies which have actually attained product market fit. And the moment you have attained there, and we'll come to that slides later on, where it actually helps you to go on a rocket growth curve as well. So typically, when you don't have a product market fit, your traction is limited. You're growing at a certain pace. But the moment you get into product market fit, right? The moment you have hit that sweet spot, your business or your company just literally takes off exponentially, right? And that is where the important. So a lot of investors, they actually give you money to actually. So if you are a good investor and if you have a good idea in mind and may not have the business idea in mind, people will give you some investment money to actually continuously try out the product market fit. So for example, if you look at the example of Cred today as a company, Cred is still trying to figure out what its product market fit is going to be, right? It is catering to a very certain audience, like the top 100 million people in the country. It has got lots of traction, a lot of ads that you can see. But I'm hoping the day the product market fit is attained, probably you can expect Cred to do a lot more things out there as well, right? I think it's important for us as people who are trying to build products for people's needs to go from being just apathetic about it to sympathetic to actually being empathetic about what people's needs are, right? Can my product really solve a problem for a person? How empathized I can become with that person? How empathetic I can become with that person? Early days when we were just adopting, a lot of the times when multinationals would come to our country, they would just bring products which have worked in the West and try to launch the same product in India without really trying to understand and empathize with what works in the local context. Today, of course, with being more connected, with being able to talk to more people, with being able to reach out to more people, it is fairly easy to go from that purely apathetic state to actually an empathetic state as well, right? So needs, which are pain points, burning problems, must-haves, and not deficiencies, are the ones which you should definitely focus upon, right? And one of the exercises that I ask people to do in their free time is to just go to your home, go to your living room, go to your other rooms, and just start to list down the things of the list of things that you own, which you think it's a necessity, it's a need, and things which you think are just there because it's a want. Like for example, if you look at my bookshelf, it's probably very driven by wants. Whereas if you look at my laptop and my work environment, it is very driven by needs because I know specifically I need those products which is solving that particular pain points that I actually have. All right, so disruption happens when you identify these latent needs of these customers, right? And we've already spoken about that. So these two gentlemen, I know everyone knows somebody on the right. Who's the person on the left? Anybody can guess? Everybody recognizes the person on the right. That's Steve Jobs. Who's the person on the left? Any guesses? Whenever I ask this question, I feel like a quiz master. So that's Henry Ford. Henry Ford, of course, we all have, probably heard this famous quote, right? Which says, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Right? So he's basically saying that there would be at times that you as an entrepreneur have this really amazing idea with which you have an amazing amount of conviction, and you know that the market is ripe for it. You know that the market is going to, succeed. And you can tell it by, maybe talking to a few people, but then you have this very strong desire, right? If you're of that league of Henry Ford, or let's say, Steve Jobs, who says that give the customers what they want, but that's not his approach. His job is to figure out what they're going to do, what they're going to want before they do, right? And that is precisely what Jobs says when he talks about the latent needs of customers. So when Steve Jobs launched the Apple store, right, the physical store in New York, a lot of people said that, oh, why do we need a physical store to do services? But then people, when they started using it, they said, oh, this is actually so important for us because that's our one-stop place for any kind of service needs that we want to have. So people were not even expecting that it will become their need, but it did eventually over a period of time. And if you look at Apple's market cap, it has grown to almost like 1.3 trillion now, which is actually huge because they continuously keep asking what could be a customer's need even later on, right? You won't believe this, but the actual iPhone was, the final launch. The idea of the iPhone actually started maybe even 3 to 4 years before it was actually launched. So that's a time when people actually start considering that in the next few years, what could be people's needs and what could they really, design and create products for. So ask every single day, right, what value addition your product provides to the people, right? So when do you know when you have this market need, right? Or when do you know when you have this, when you achieve that product market fit that we are talking about, right? So when your product value proposition, right, distribution channels and the customers, they're all in alignment, right? So you have a product, you have a distribution channel, which you're basically distributing through whatever channels you have, and it's reaching the customers. You're able to collect customer feedback. You're able to bring that back to through the same distribution channels. You're able to bring back that information and iterate over your product. When these things align, then you know precisely that you actually have a product market fit. Right? So typically what happens is, when you start with a problem in mind, you start to build a solution. You're only worried about the solution. You're not worried about the market. And that is true 99% of the times, right? Very few will actually do market understanding much earlier. I would recommend to start doing product market fit parallelly with itself, right? As you can see. Then of course there is a product market fit stage, and then there is scaling stage, right? Typically, if you look at the risk graph here, the risk is kind of inversely proportional to the time if you have attained product market fit, right? So revenue and risk is inversely proportional. If my risk is reduced only when my product market fit has been reached and my revenues can actually skyrocket, right? So for any companies, this is the stage that they all aspire for. Every major tech company in the world will aspire for this stage because they all want revenue and they want to minimize the risk, and they want to say that with a certain amount, little bit of investment, we can actually grow our revenue. This is that holy grail where all venture capitalists, all investors would want to see themselves in. 99% of the startups actually fall here itself, right? They would actually finish off by the time they have reached about 60-70%, and by about here, before even product market fit, before even revenue stage, before even growth stage, a lot of startups have actually failed already, right? So the point of showing this slide is not to dishearten you, but to tell you that if you're thinking of starting a product, be thinking that yes, there is going to be a certain journey that I have to undertake. It is going to take some time, and with the right guidance, we can actually create right products as well. All right, I'm going to skip that one. Okay, so there are 4 stages of a user journey, right? So typically, what happens in our when we start to think about products, right? So there are 4 stages. First is user acquisition. Basically, how do you acquire the user? How do you want to engage the user? How do we want to retain the user? And then how do we want to monetize the user? This is how you should ideally be doing, right? So the moment you start a product, your first goal should be that can I acquire more number of users? And that is in startup language, that is often called as the customer acquisition cost, right? The CAC. So customer acquisition cost is mainly to look at how to acquire many users. For example, Cred today, for example, would spend, let's say, 700 to 800 rupees to acquire one customer. Paytm would probably spend, let's say, 10 rupees to acquire one customer, right? Zomato might spend, let's say, 15 rupees to acquire one new customer. Once you have acquired the customer, then you engage the customer, right? In terms of, okay, what are the product features that I'm going to provide, which the person is going to use, and which is going to be, helpful for them. Then how to retain them so that they do it again and again. And then again, think about how to monetize it by, offering more services and charging them. The mistake we make is we start thinking straight away from monetization. Trust me when I say this, no venture capitalist in the world, specifically at the idea stage, expects you to tell them the answer and how will you earn money. A lot of this venture capitalists, specifically the mature investors, will always say that you should learn how to acquire the user first, engage them well, give them a good user experience, and then we will think about how we can monetize that user base as well, right? You should be thinking both short-term and long-term about users, right? If you think only short-term, you're only thinking about customer acquisition. But when you think long-term, you're actually thinking about customer monetization as well, right? So how can you monetize from that particular user? So that is about product market. But what if you do not get the PMF soon, right? What are the consequences? And trust me, this is something that happens quite a lot. A lot of people actually do not get the right, the right market fit, and they just give up, right? Because they would probably have not got from customers, feedback. They would have not got some investors. One of the consequences that happen if you don't get a PMF is you decline, you just die out. Many times you just shut down your startup because you're like, we are not getting traction, we're not growing, there's no investor interested, and things like that. All right. Instead of shutting down, one of the advice that I often give to a lot of my startups that I mentor is to think if you can pivot, right? Pivot in the word tech startup culture means shifting away from your original product and offering something new that you think that client and the customers might be interested in. And it is very essential because if you have already spent that time in acquiring the customers and paying a lot of money to actually build your customer base, it would be rather foolish to just walk away from the customer and just shut down without doing anything. So whenever a lot of venture capitalists, when they advise startups for survival, sometimes they say, instead of shutting down, can you just pivot, because you already have the customer base, right? And I personally know so many friends of mine who have actually done that, right? Because sometimes, and go and pivot and try to do something else. And pivot is not something which is bad, right? I would think pivot is actually good, because then you know that you still want to do something. Typically, this is the expectation that you have, that you want users to grow over a period of time. But what you realize is that after a certain point of time, users have stagnated and there is nothing more that you can do. A pivot really helps to make sure that you can again go back to your growth stage, because you might have just modified certain things of your product and it has actually got more number of users. In fact, many successful companies in the world have pivoted, right? So Twitter, Pinterest, Flickr, Instagram, PayPal, Groupon, YouTube, Android, like a lot of them, right? Twitter started as a website where people could download podcasts from over the world, right? Flickr started off as a high quality equipment, photography equipment rental site, right? YouTube started off as a online video dating site, right? So you can imagine, like, people start off in different capacities, and then when you see that they have acquired customers, they can actually build on top of that and create something new over that as well, right? So if you have spent the effort and the money and the energy into acquiring the customers, there is no reason why pivot should not be in your agenda after a certain point of time. And pivot is always time function based. So you know that, okay, I'm going to try this startup idea for, let's say, 2 years. 2 years, we will acquire, let's say, 100,000 users or 200,000 users. And after that, if things are not working, you will probably try to pivot and try to explore something else. But definitely not want to just shut it down. So all of you must have heard this example of Paytm Soundbox, right? All of you have seen this? Have you seen this? Yes, no, on the chat. You can just chat yes, no, or just say yes, no. Yes, sir. So this is one of the examples that I give of a great product market fit that we have actually, in our ecosystem, right? So I kind of work with a team that works on Paytm Soundbox as well. I feel that it's one of those great products which somehow just fits in that consumer shop, right? The merchant shop. What does this product do? Anybody?
Whenever you make a payment, it just calls for that the payment has been made and says the amount which has been paid.
Right. So it tells the amount, right? So Paytm par 200 rupees प्राप्त हुए. Right? You can actually customize in Hindi, English, and eventually we are adding more languages to it as well, right? But what is the customer's need that we are trying to solve here? Anybody can answer that? What was the main need that we're trying to solve here?
Yes. Sir, can I go for Hindi?
Yes, हिंदी बोलो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है.
हाँ सर, मतलब इससे क्या होता है, हमको बार बार शॉपिंग को दिखाना पड़ता है कि पेमेंट हो गई, ये देख लो, और कभी कभी भीड़ हो तो फिर इसमें और दिक्कत होती है. और अपना एक अगर ऐसा साउंड आ जाए, सीधा पता लग जाए कितना पेमेंट करना है, और उतना अगर सीधा जो कस्टमर है उसको भी पता लग जाता है, और जो शॉप ओनर है उसको भी पता लग जाता है, देखने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती. He can just pay and leave.
Very good. Anything else?
Sir, quick payment.
Quick payment, okay. So you have the QR code, so you can just scan it from here and quickly pay it. What else? Anybody else? Here's a very interesting
Sir, confirmation.
Data. Confirmation, yeah. So confirmation of a payment made, right?
Yes, sir.
Anything else? So one of the stories that happened was one of the reasons why we also built this product. So there were a lot of merchants.
Or both merchant and consumer.
Sorry, go ahead. Someone was saying something? Okay, go ahead. So one of the other things that, that was a huge win for this product was reducing the number of frauds with merchants. So what was happening was many times people would, make a payment, actually not make a payment, and just show a screenshot of a previous payment and tell the merchant that, you know what, we have made this payment. And merchant would say, it is seeing that it is made paid. And often what would happen is, because today, of course, the system is much more evolved and much more robust. But back in the days when the system was not evolved, it was actually difficult for us to find. There would be lag, right? The moment you made a payment, there would be lag in your SMS, there would be lag in the voice notification. This product really solved that, because now the moment a payment is made, instantaneously there's sound notification that comes, and the merchant without either having to look at his own phone and not pay attention. Imagine you're in a crowded shop, right? You're in Haldiram Bhujia wala shop, and there is like a crowded shop, and too many people on the counter, and the guy has to, after every payment, he has to check his mobile phone and do it. A key problem there was that without having that person to really defocus and automatically can he get some notification about the payment which is done, right? So this product has been very successful in the past few years. Today, if you are in any metro cities, it's available in pan shops. It is available in vegetable shops. I was surprised to see that a pani puri wala had this thing, very popular pani puri wala outside my home. A lot of people have been using it in different capacities as well. So always, when you are going out there, right, in your home, in your environment, in your markets, always try to find, right? Always try to find what are some examples of product which you think is really fitting well. यार ये product ना मतलब सही बैठ रहा है यहाँ पे. इसके अलावा, and today I'm thinking why, like, how can I live without Paytm, or how can I live without digital payments if suddenly this thing has to go away from my life, right? So suddenly it's this huge fit that has become in my life as well. And all of you should be able to find something like that in your homes as well. It's as a homework exercise, not really as a part of this online lecture, but generally just as exercise when you go back homes or whenever you're just traveling back somewhere. Just start being more observant. Look at things around you and start to see there. ये चीज यहाँ पे सही चीज है, because ये नहीं होता ना तो ये चीज नहीं हो पाता यहाँ पे. If this was not there, it should have not been there, right? So, and eventually, as startup enthusiasts or people who want to start up and build innovation products, if you can keep that mindset, you'll always be able to find something or the other which the market needs, and you'll be able to build a great product there. Okay, so just to summarize quickly, typically how it works is we line up a product goals, you try to come up with some hypothesis, you prioritize, because you cannot go ahead with everything, right? So you will prioritize ye karna hai. Let me do first couple of things which we call as a minimum viable product, right? The MVP. So MVP basically allows you to prioritize that here are the 5 things that we want to explore. Out of those things, here are these 2 things which my MVP will explore. And then I'm going to talk to 5 people who are going to, validate that idea. I'm going to go and build it, and either I will keep it, kill it, or I will pivot, right? This is important validation, because if I'm going to keep it, which means I'm going to build it, kill it means I'm going to stop using it, and pivot, as I explained, is I can actually say that, okay, based on these learnings, I can, evolve to build something on top of what we already know. It may be slightly different from what was initially planned, but that's okay, as long as we have understood what the product market fit is, have understood what the product market needs are, right? And then you go back again to that cyclic process as well, right? So this is a good check, right? How would you feel if you could no longer use the product, right? This is a question that you can ask to people, right? Like, ask to about 20 people, ask them this question, that you can change this to something else, right? Use something else in this, use a real product out there. And for example, if I use the word, how would you feel if you could no longer use Swiggy, right? And if 16 people out of 20 say, or like not 16, 8 to 9 people out of 20 say that, they would be actually feel very disappointed. They know that, yes, there has been a product market fit. Which is a nice way for you to just check, whether your product is getting a product market fit or not, right? So I think, when you look at product market fit, it's a long journey, right? It starts with an idea, and then, you have a lot of hypothesis, team members join in. When other team members join in, they have their own ideas. You argue, you debate, you say that this will work, this will not work, this is worth the exploring, this is not worth the exploring, X, Y, Z. There's so many things that you go ahead with. What happens is many people give up on that long journey. That the journey itself becomes such a daunting task that people just give up on that journey, right? So it is a long journey, but as I said, it's worth that journey if you're really inspired to build startups. And I think all the classic examples of companies in India, right? Consumer tech companies, you can take Paytm, Flipkart, Zomato, Swiggy, any of these consumer tech companies out, Make My Trip, they've all been there for a long journey time, right? It's all been there for a long journey time. It's always been worth the journey for all the people who are in that processes. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I'm going to check if there are a few questions, and we can take a couple of questions. All right, I'll leave this up here while I take questions. Growth in startup means extending the same product large scale or multiple markets or multiple products, right? So great question, Mansi. I think there are multiple ways of looking at growth, right? It also defines upon if you have a really strong product, you don't want to diversify by building multiple products, because remember, to bring a product to life and bring it to market is actually a time-consuming process. So you might want to evolve on the same product. So for example, the example I showed you of Paytm Soundbox, now we have a Paytm Soundbox 2.0. It's the same product, but it's an evolved version, because now you're able to see, the customer is able to see there's a display unit here, and the customer is able to see how much amount he needs to pay. And on the other side, the merchant is able to see how much amount the customer is paying. Right? So it's an evolution of the same product. Right? So you may not want to diversify the product just for the sake of it. Also, I think the biggest thing that people evaluate growth is to just look at large scale or multiple markets. So for example, if you're building something for, let's say, in Maharashtra right now, tomorrow you might say, okay, now my product is going to build used in Maharashtra and Karnataka and Delhi and UP. Then you already have growth out there as well. Right? So yeah, so I think I answered the question there. Avoid multiple products as much as possible. Is there any checklist for product market fit survey? There's no checklist as such, Shivani. You can find like lots of templates. Ideally, if you have one is in product market fit is when you have a product. You can also look at, if you're starting out, I would also suggest to do idea validation. So what you can do is, just take up a small survey, kind of create a small survey and get people to create different, create different questions, which basically answers whether that particular idea is valuable or not, whether the idea would be helpful to people or not, right? But there are a lot of checklists and templates available out there for product management, which you can just explore. Kunal has this question: how to approach angel investors? Kunal, see, angel investors are like probably stage 2 of your funding journey. Stage 1 always starts with stage 3 actually. Stage 1 starts with your personal funds. Stage 2 is your friends and family. Stage 3 is angel investors, right? So sometimes these days, angel investors probably want to see some sort of an idea in some shape, in terms of some form, before they can actually take the bet on you, right? So I would suggest that before approaching angel investors, have some homework. There are different kinds of angel investors as well. You should also be aware about whether your angel investor is willing to walk the journey with you, because angel investment is a very high risk fund, right? A high risk fund meaning that the chances of the fund not giving any returns to the investor is very high, right? Because it's still an idea. Probably angel investors do a lot during product market fit, before pre-product market fit journey, contributions to startups. So it's a high risk business. Identify what domain that angel investor is interested in investing in, then go and reach out to them. So for example, if you're building a company in clean technologies, right, green tech, and you're investing in an investor who is probably interested only in edtech, there will never be a match, right? So do some homework on the angel investor, do some homework on the kind of product that they like to build, and then you basically approach them. Om has this question about where does the funding come from for any business? Funding could be multiple sources, Om. As I said, you can start with your own fund, you can start with your own pocket money. That's the best way to fund your initial idea. Then comes friends and family. So classmates ko pakdo, classmates ke baad apne family ko pakdo. FNF round that we call, right? Once you see that you get some traction, your business has come to some stability with that, then you should start approaching, angel investors. After angel investors come institutional funding, right? So seed funding, Series A funding, and more amount of funding, right? Series A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then there is IPO, right? So IPO means taking funding from the public. It's an initial public offer. So for example, Paytm or Zomato are planning to do an IPO. So they want to raise funding, but they want to raise money from the public. And they are saying the public can actually have a share in the company and become a listed company. So there are different levels of funding as well, and there are different ways to go about it. But funding, I think, could be a separate webinar someday altogether as well. All right, I know we are about 15 minutes beyond time. Any other questions, people you may want to just ask or type in a chat window? Happy to take those questions as well. Do offices are really needed for startup or business? Devansh, I think these days, I think more and more companies are doing remote first. So don't worry about offices. You can actually do a lot of things remotely these days. The remote collaboration tools are very powerful. You know, Google Drive, Zoom, and email, and some, you can sit anywhere and code. I think you can create a company from anywhere, right? On that similar line, startup accelerators, Kunal, I think it's helpful if you get the right amount of guidance for this. The problem with startup accelerators is sometimes some accelerators actually ask for equity in your company. If you are getting a startup accelerator which is doing without equity, as in like which they don't want a portion of your company, they don't want any stake in your company, and they are bringing good mentors, I think it's worth exploring. As the name suggests, it's an accelerator. So, like you can have incubation, you can have accelerator. Incubation is more about where you have an idea and you want to incubate it to a business. Accelerator is where you already have a business and you want to take it to a next level, right? So, depending on what journey of your what stage of the journey of your startup you are in, you might want to see, whom you want to reach out to. Because see, at the end of the day, right, there is no free lunch. Everybody is expecting something in return to approach. Oh, other questions? I've been in non-stop speaking mode since we started. Other questions? Any questions? Going once, going twice, going thrice. All right. Okay, great. Abhishek sir, we are done.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I think students have various questions, but they are reluctant to answer, or there might be some hesitation in their mind. So I'll just do one thing, sir. I'll collect them from from students and I'll just mail it to you. Will it be okay, sir?
Yes, happy to answer all of those questions. Of course, there is Kunal's question is difference between startup, business, and entrepreneurship. How to grow if there is always alternate market, like for clothing we have. It's a long question, Kunal. I think just start. Right? Don't worry about the terminology. Whether it's a business or someone calls it entrepreneurship or whatever. Just start. Don't get too caught up in the terminologies of these things. Kunal, yes, by all means. But the Thiel Fellowship, I think, requires you to drop out of college. So you should check with Sanjay sir and Abhishek sir on that. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, students. Now we are officially approaching towards the last section of our program. So over to you, Sandesh, sir.
Yeah, if I may just answer Devansh's question real quick before Sanjay take it on. Devansh, the scope for anything in the world is aplenty. But if you were to take my advice of being in the industry for 16, 17 years, I would say don't do solopreneurship. I have failed in my couple of startups because I did it solo. Sometimes it gets very frustrating as well. These days, it's good to have a team because almost every startup company, every startup investor would want to see a team. So not advisable to take a solopreneur journey. Yes, sir. Sanjay sir, go ahead.
Sandesh sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Dear participants and faculty members, I request all of you to please switch on your cameras. Let us have a group photograph together. Students and faculty members, please switch on your cameras. Okay. Let us just take one more. Just hold on, please. And thank you.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I have a question. Actually, I am designing a product for women's safety. It is a watch, safety watch for women, which can help her in any situation, like in villages we are hearing about the rape cases and all. So what about that?
Yeah. So Mansi, I would suggest that, if you can just, my email address there, you can just mail me the idea and what you are working on, because it will be difficult to kind of, give a feedback immediately this way. I can always, I think Sandesh can also give you my email ID, and also, if you've noted it down, you can just feel free to just email me, and I'll send you much detailed feedback about how to go about it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Sorry to disturb you, sir. Mansi already asked one question, that is, does assemble parts can be a part of a startup? So I think she is relating with that watch particularly. Yeah. So assembly means some processor and some programming will be there. So yes, so is it a part of a startup that can be?
So I think definitely it can be. In fact, hardware startups, physical product startups are also there. They actually, at the end of the day, if it serves a problem, if it solves a problem, if it solves a need, I think there is immense scope for it. A lot of times you have to actually find the right market for it. You have to make the pricing well so that people can adopt it. There are many other factors that depend upon the success of the product, right? But especially purely from the product knowledge perspective, I think definitely it's definitely we can explore that to be a product as well. All right, thank you so much once again, everyone. Stay safe, get your vaccinations done whenever possible, and have a great weekend. I'm going to rush to catch a flight right now, and it's very interesting. And I'm not like boasting, but I'm actually in a hospital right now taking my session, because I had to come for a doctor appointment, and doctor appointment got slightly delayed. And I requested these guys that give me a room where I can just take this webinar, because I cannot miss this webinar. So thank you so much, everyone, for making time.
It's really great.
Thank you for joining, sir. Anand sir, thank you.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you.